Hello, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Wrong webcam.
Okay, great. So everybody's here. So as I just announced on LinkedIn and everywhere I could, we have a last minute change. So instead of Vanessa Grellet, it's going to be me, Caroline Winter, board member at La French Tech New York City and La French Tech America, who will be moderating this amazing panel. And I have to say secretly that I was hoping to do so.
That's good.
So hopefully my questions will be as relevant as Vanessa's one. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for all of you attending this panel right now. So let's dive on this topic like right away. So first of all, before we introduce our panelists, there's like actually two numbers that I wanted to mention that Thibaut gave us when we were preparing this panel that actually were pretty important, I guess, to say. NFTs spending in Q2 2021 were about like $2 billion and jumped to $11 billion in Q3 2021. So in just like 3 months, we went from 2 to 11, which is just amazing. So it's not only a buzzword, I guess, but really something happening. We all heard about Meta and Metaverse, and right now the real question is what are the opportunities and challenges that will be facing all these entrepreneurs and brands, and also consumers and people like me trying to join this new movement. I think that one of the questions is the difference or the different opportunities for NFTs to get into the metaverse, but sometimes it's not the case. So maybe trying to understand a bit more of this. But first of all, I would like to introduce our panelists. So briefly, if you could just state what you do and how come you are in NFT and what you do, in this business. So let's start with Julien. You are the first on my right.
Sure. Well, nice to meet everyone. My name is Julien Genestoux. I'm the CEO and founder at Unlock, a company whose goal is to build a protocol for memberships that actually uses NFTs as a way to represent these memberships. And what are memberships? Well, these are the things that you use to access Netflix, a subscription to Netflix or Spotify, or when you support creators on Kickstarter or Patreon, or when you pay for the New York Times. All of these things are memberships, and all of these things should be represented as non-fungible tokens.
Awesome. Thibaut. Well, Thibaut is actually representing Sora, which made the headlines, for La French Tech and everywhere in the world. Anybody a little bit familiar with NFT knows what I'm talking about. So thank you for joining us, Thibaut.
Yeah, so I'm Thibaut. I'm the chief of staff of Nicolas Julia, the CEO and co-founder of Sorare. And at Sorare, what we do the cards behind me. They are NFTs and they represent famous football players. And that's basically what we do. So you can collect them, you can trade them, you can sell them, and you can also play them in a fantasy game.
Awesome. Frederic. So I forgot to mention that Julien is based in New York City. You, Thibaut, you are based in France, Paris in general, I guess, right?
Yes.
And Frederic, who used to be the face of La French Tech here in New York City, but not anymore. So now you're based in the south of France and for Ariane. But tell me more about Ariane.
Yes, so thank you very much for having me today. So I'm both an entrepreneur and investor. I started investing in the field of cryptocurrency in 2012. And a little bit more than 4 years ago, I decided to start a project called Ariane, which is open source and open service. And the idea behind Ariane and the vision we have is that first, the world is being tokenized, and Unlock and Sora are a good example of transforming ownership or membership into a token. So what we see here is global. So we have in the financial industry, the decentralized finance has tokenized a lot of assets. And generally speaking, we think that all this tokenization of assets and ownership and membership will lead to a new kind of social graph. So we think that those tokens and the wallets inside which those tokens are holded represent a social graph. And at IANI, we build the first layer of a new kind of social network, which allow communication between owner of this token. And 4.5 years ago, there were really few NFTs on the market. We decided to have a go-to-market with real brands. And we decided to help those brands to create digital passports, NFTs, for real stuff. So we work with a lot of, we have 50 brands today who are creating NFTs, which represent real assets. That can be a watch, a purse, or whatever. And because they create the digital passports, they virtually connect those real assets onto the network. And they create a direct link between the brands and the owner. We'll probably discuss that later. But the idea is to rebuild the way we communicate through internet, avoiding to have a centralized party like a Facebook or a Google, and having a direct connection between the people.
So what is interesting in you guys is you are using NFTs in 3 different ways, and your basically your customers, if I may say, are a little bit different. So if I understand, Julien is more about community, trying to bring people together in a different way and using NFTs and having, you know, this digital identity that you can, you know, convey from platform to platform. For Sora is more about having some kind of assets, you know, with the soccers or sports in general, and owning a piece of NFTs. But in your case, Frederic, it's more you're addressing more the brands and you know, industries, you know, players in this field. How do you think all of this will translate at some point to the metaverse, and how do you think, you know, it's gonna, what are the challenges really about getting consumers to get into the metaverse and owning NFTs? How are we gonna be able to get those industry players to get into the metaverse and using NFTs? How do you think it's gonna play at some point, you know, and what are the main challenges? If you want to start, maybe you, Fred.
So maybe we can, so I think metaverse is not something that is defined yet. So we should probably give a definition, and it's very personal. But from my perspective, the metaverse is just the way we interact today through screens and network. So I don't see the metaverse as a 3-dimension thing. But for me, just spending most of our time, whether it's for professional or personal reason in front of a screen or with a screen in our hands, that just enhance the way we live with a connection to a network, is already a metaverse. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think that, so we talk a lot about Web3 today. Web3 is about regaining control over the infrastructure we use. And at the end of the day, all these movements for both users and brands probably, is about trying to create the right condition to rethink the way the really low level of the internet protocol and layers is working, to make sure that you don't have a third party when you want to interact with someone. And the idea behind this tokenization and probably the challenge for brands, for user of course, but for brands first, is to find the right way to create the condition for them to regain control over this infrastructure, create the right digital assets to represent this infrastructure, and also for the user to be able to get a part of this infrastructure. So this is all about rethinking the way you share an interest with someone, with your clients, with your partners, and make sure that you create the right incentive and economy to make sure that everyone is incentivized to use a digital system.
Very good. What about you, Thibaut? What do you think about the metaverse? What is your definition of this, and how do you feel like SOAR will have like a say to in this new Web3 world?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Fred on this. I think it's anything that interacts with the screen, with an online presence, and every aspect of it. So rare on the metaverse, I don't know yet, because what we do, it's mainly NFTs, and it's related to what we want to bring to those digital assets. Our mission was to create something that it's scarce, that has true ownership, that can be authentic, and that can be portable to somewhere else, whether on the SOAR platform or on another platform or on another game. And these are the properties of NFTs. Now, when you look at the metaverse, one of the challenges of the metaverse, in my opinion, when you look at, for instance, let's say the concert on Fortnite, you had, I think, Travis Scott or guys like this on Fortnite. The way, for instance, he is dressed on the metaverse, how do you make sure that it respects the IP of the clothes owners, for instance? How do you make sure that there is an ownership around the metaverse? And this is probably where NFTs can be an answer if you look at this concert, whether it's because the tickets to access this metaverse concert are NFTs, or whether it's because you are wearing digital clothes that are certified by an NFT. That's the kind of application that you can see, and the kind of connection that can be created between NFT and metaverse. And I think to answer your first question, it's more about what are you trying to achieve on the metaverse or on the digital world? And are NFTs an answer for that? If you want scarcity, ownership, authenticity, and portability, then NFTs are an answer to those problems.
Okay, what about you, Julien?
I mean, it's not going to be very interesting, but I very much agree with what Fred and Thibaut said. I would add one more property to NFTs, which is something that as a software engineer, is very close to my heart, but I don't think people necessarily understand what that means, but it's the programmability. It's the fact that these NFTs now are not, you think about an NFT, it's a relationship between two things, right? Like when it's a SOAR card, it's a relationship between the owner of the card and whoever's the player. When you're thinking about a membership with Unlock, it's basically the relationship between a member and a community. But this relationship, from a technical perspective, until now, they were represented as rows inside of a database or an Excel spreadsheet. By making them on-chain, by bringing them to what I call the DMZ, the kind of a neutral place, now they become programmable. They become objects that some other entity, some other company, some other developers can take and kind of build on. So one of the examples that I tell all the time, and I think that applies very well to SOAR, right now, these are cards, right? But if I were to build a game, I can tell my users, you know what, you own the Mbappe card. Why don't you bring that Mbappe card into my game? And this becomes something that is completely possible in the gaming space, brings a whole new set of perspectives. But beyond that, maybe I'm going to fly. I think PSG is sponsored by Qatar Airlines or something. But basically, the idea is like, oh, when I go buy a ticket, and maybe that's wrong, but if the airline sees that I have the Mbappe card, might give me a discount because I'm one of the people that already owns the card. Right now, in the physical world, that would be almost impossible to do. They would have to kind of ask me to check, to show my card when I book an online ticket. That would be impossible, right? And that would be really, really hard to do. But with this idea of, again, making the NFTs, making these things programmable in the form of NFTs, you completely enable a whole new world of possibilities, which I think is definitely that. And going back to the metaverse question, I think I agree with Fred and Thibaut, but maybe it's because I'm old. Like, it feels like the metaverse already. Like, after a year and a half, 2 years of pandemic, we're just all interacting on computers. Who knows? Maybe I'm just a bot and not a real person, right? For anyone on the other side, it's unclear whether I'm a real person. So I don't think there's a distinction anymore to be made between IRL, which is in real life, and URL, which is like basically the internet anymore. Specifically, it feels like the real life is just becoming one layer of the metaverse when there's a lot of other layers. And as Thibaut said before, there's concert and that are now happening in these other layers. And it's unclear to me that the real world is the most important layer anymore at this point.
Okay, but there's still this this challenge of interoperability, you know, between platforms, and this is what I think people, and especially brands. I've talked to a lot of different C-level executives in different universe, whereas it's you know, fashion industry or anything else, travel. They still have some questions about, but what is it really compared to, you know, communicating on Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever it is, you know. And I think this is all this connection between, you know, those different worlds, and as well as what we talked about, you know, when we were preparing this this talk. It's really to be able to have one and only one digital identity that you can, you know, travel with in anywhere, which is not the case right now. I think this is what really needs to be understood right now. And the following question is really about what, in terms of use cases, you know, what NFTs and blockchain really will really bring in terms of additional value to the metaverse, you know, where is it, you know, creating some marketing or experiences, you know, what are the opportunities there for brands or even, you know, anybody really, but also what are the challenges, you know, can we translate what we know already in the digital world to what the metaverse is supposed to be, or is it going to be just something totally different? What are we supposed to expect, and who can really guide those brands, you know, to be better at this? Go ahead, Fred. I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Maybe. First of all, when we talk about metaverse, when we talk about digital in general, there are two possibilities: whether you are a part and a primitive, a native primitive of the network, or you are at the periphery of the internet. So far, the brands in general are interacting with their customer through ad networks or through a platform that they don't own. They have absolutely no leverage on this platform, and they just pay to have some interaction with the users. The opportunity with Web3, NFTs, and everything that is building now is to be a native component on the internet where you were not before. So, and the challenge is to find a way to become a native something, a native brand, and that your product, your services are represented by a native primitive on the internet. And what brings NFTs in that game is that you can imagine to translate what you do, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether it's a membership, into an NFT, and then to be really connected with the network in a way that it has never been before. So, as an example, what we do with IANI, we allow brands to create an NFT for a real product. So of course, the real product will live its life outside of the internet, but you will have a digital passport, a digital twin, to represent this product and the identity of this product inside the network. So this is one way to do it. And the challenge for the brand is to understand how to issue this kind of token, how to make sure that the people take this token and hold this token somewhere to have interaction with the brands. This is what I see, and SOAR does it really well with leagues and with football players. So this is exactly what they do. They create digital twins for brands, for people who exist in an offline world, and then you can hold the part of those players. You can be a part of a community, because holding a token is being a part of the community. And on top of that, you can create experience. And what has done so far really well is to create both the issuing of the token and the gameplay, so all the experience around this token, to make sure that it's not just having a part of a brand in a hand, but also to have utility of this token. So I think that what the brand and what the company today have to explore is, how can I issue tokens that represent what I build, what I sell, and how can I create experiences and utility for my tokens?
Yeah,
and I can give some example if you want.
To bounce back on that, because we talked about Sorare, I think it's exactly what we had in mind. First, it was, there is a problem on the market somehow, or something that is underserved. It's how do you create digital items that have the same properties as the one in the physical world? So they are unique, they are scarce, they are digitally certified, and so on. So NFTs were an answer for that. And then it was, but we want to improve the experience of those cards, because they can be seen as a collectible item for sure, but there is no point of just owning something and storing it somewhere and not using it on a daily basis or on a weekly basis or whenever you want. And this is the concept of utility. What can you actually do with those NFTs, with those digital products? Because at the end of the day, they are products. So brands should think about them as a product that serves the needs of an end user, of end customers, and so on. And the Sorare card is actually that. It's for the one who wants to collect and also play those cards in a game. And this is the utility part, where you can actually interact with your soccer players on the card, with the clubs, with football in general. You have to look at the calendar to play those cards and so on. So it's actually beneficial to the owner of the NFT, because he interacts with something he likes, and also for the brands. So in this case, it's football clubs or organization around football, because we connect the community to the sports.
Okay, that's interesting, because I note on both of your, on your interaction right now, is like you are linking NFTs, metaverse to the physical world. So it seemed like at first, like it was not the case. It seems like it was a world on itself, like somewhere Web3, something like very tangible. But actually you really think that this Web3 experience, NFTs, whatever it is really linked to the physical world. It's like it's the opposite of what we all fear in a way. It's like, it's actually like creating something that will connect more people actually on the physical world. This is what you think is going to happen really, or is it just a wishful thinking?
To give you another example on this, just to finish on Sorare, because we're talking a lot about Sorare, but we are actually connecting the digital cards with a real life experience. Because let's say you are an NFT owner and you win something on Sorare. In some cases, you can actually go to a stadium because you are the owner of this NFT or the winner of this competition on Sorare. So it's really about connecting our brands with the brand of the clubs through the NFT, through the experience.
And this is what you're trying to do as well, Julien, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the end, maybe going back to this is like, this is the real world. Like NFTs, the metaverse, this is the real world. Like for a lot of kids, but even us, like you remove their phone from their hands, you literally, cut them from something that is extremely real to them. So I don't think we can do the distinction between, the metaverse and the real world. Like the metaverse is the real world, as in the same way that the real world is the real world, like the physical place. And so it makes sense in that scenario that things that exist in the physical, tangible world do exist in the virtual world. And that to me is the innovation of blockchain in some way. It's like being able to kind of invent digital scarcity, digital uniqueness. Until 10, 11 years ago, you could not have something that was unique and digital. You could say, hey, I've got this file on my computer, I can copy it, right? And we say, oh, NFTs are just JPEG that I can copy. Yes, you can. But the blockchain actually enforces the ownership title, like guarantees that Fred owns Mbappe or that Thibaut owns some other player. And that's the thing that exists in the physical world. Like this object is a real object, and I know this is here. In the digital world, that did not exist. What the crypto blockchain world brought is like that uniqueness is now possible in the digital world, which means that everything that is physical can have a digital counterpart as well. And that's what Fred is doing with the brands and things like that. So yes, I absolutely agree with this, but I think we should start thinking that there is no such thing as real world and not real world. Like this is all real in the end.
Do you see any, I asked this question, but it's really something, you know, a lot of people are actually asking me very often is, do you see any industries or any type of businesses that will not have access to this NFT and digitalization, you know, of their assets, you know, to or experiences, you know, marketing experiences through the metaverse? Do you see anything that, you know, could not be possible for them in a very short period of time? It seems like, you know, Fred said that there's an emergency right now for brands to go full force, you know, on this NFT and metaverse revolution. So, but it feels like not everybody is ready, first of all, and maybe not everything is ready for them to come.
I mean, it's interesting because I do think that it's going to be everywhere in the end. Like we're talking about brands and memberships and soccer cards, as we say in the US, more than football. But in the end, there's actually projects that are doing NFT for supply chain. So something that is completely far away from the end consumers, but actually an NFT is a good way to represent a container on a boat. It's like, hey, this non-fungible token is the unique representation of that container on that boat. And when the container arrives somewhere, it basically, the NFT itself transfers from a wallet or from belonging to a specific contract that represents the boat to belonging to another contract that represents the port. And so you can really, I mean, the way to think about NFTs is not to think about a digital image or to think about a card or even a membership. It is a way to think about a record in a database. And that record in that database until now was kind of private and was kind of hidden from everybody else. But anything that sits in a database, and I think at this point it's pretty much everything in the world, should or could exist as an NFT and will exist as an NFT. That's my guess. Eventually, the power of putting that in the open and allowing people to kind of play with Legos in some way, like plug things in one another, is so powerful that it will actually mean that every object eventually will be an NFT or will have an NFT associated with it. Does that make sense, or is it too esoteric?
It does make sense to me.
And in that scenario, I think one of the, we're going to go deep in crypto, but like one of the popular, the most popular so-called DeFi exchange is called Uniswap. And Uniswap allows people to kind of invest money. The way they represent positions in the financial system is actually through NFTs. We're very, very far from soccer cards or things like this, but it's yet another example of like non-fungible tokens that are not, you know, images, that are not consumer goods, but are actually represented a liquidity position on an exchange. The fact that it actually works well for them makes me think that NFTs are going to work well for pretty much everything.
Okay. Last question, because unfortunately we don't have the whole day, and trust me, I could go on, but not you. We talked a lot about opportunities and you know, everything that is possible or, you know, imaginable in the next few months or years. But there are really a lot of challenges ahead. We discussed that as well. Technologically speaking, you know, not everything is really ready right now. So we are all, you know, wishing for the best, you know, for everything to be, you know, interoperable and everything. But there's also some challenges in terms of wallet. We talked about the wallet, you know, like being able to have this, you know, on our iPhone the same way, you know, I can make any transaction on Amazon or any website right now. Since it's supposed to be the future of e-commerce in a way, I think we are definitely not ready. We talked about regulation as well. So what do you think is the main problem or challenges, you know, ahead, especially when you're an entrepreneur and you want to, you know, launch a business in this field? What do you think is really to be careful for right now? Maybe Thibaut, would you have any insight on this? What are the challenges for Sora right now?
Yeah, we always have challenges because at the end of the day, we're trying to bring Sora to more users and to connect them with football. And I think you were right. When we started, it was mainly crypto enthusiasts that were on Sora because you needed to understand how a wallet works, how you can buy an NFT, what an NFT is actually for you. And as we grow and continue to develop the product, our message changes because NFT, it's not the end for Sora. It's just the way of creating something that is digitally scarce and can be used and operate on a lot of platforms. So to achieve that for any fan in the world, we'll need a smooth experience for sure. And one of the things that we need is to allow anyone to buy an NFT with a credit card, for instance. It's possible on Sora, but on a lot of platforms, on a lot of NFT platforms, it's actually not possible, to give you an example. So making this NFT accessible to anyone is, to me, the biggest challenges. Making things actually operable among platforms is actually another of the challenges, because sometimes you need to discuss with another platform to accept your NFTs and so on. So some of them are not really NFTs. So it's a lot of things that will need to be discussed between players in the space and between providers of services around NFTs to make it really a mass market thing.
Fred?
So actually, I think that you have tools already available. As an example, if you buy a Breitling watch today, you will have an NFT associated with this watch that represents the warranty and the origin and everything you have in terms of interaction with Breitling brand. So it's feasible, and they have developed the framework to do it. And you will store your NFT onto a digital wallet on your phone. Probably you will not be aware that it is an NFT, but behind the infrastructure, this is an NFT. Now, just a remark on that. We are in a very special situation because we have now, I think, 4.5 billion people connected to the internet. This is the infrastructure for the blockchain and tokens and everything to exist online, which means that at the time everything will work properly, possibly that one day we can imagine that Apple or Android will provide native wallet onto the phone. The tipping point and the acceleration will be massive. And I don't think that brands have the time actually to wait for this tipping point to be reached, to be sure that they are prepared to regain control over this new technology and to adopt it. And I think it's very an emergency for brands, because if they don't from now, if they don't study and if they don't try to adopt and to integrate this technology in their framework and in the way they interact with people, I think that the Facebook, Amazon, Google of the world will do it for them, and it's probably historic opportunity to reverse and to change the way the digital world work in general, for the industry to build consortium to work together in order to create the right infrastructure for them for the future. And it's now, because of course not everything is ready. Of course there is in terms of adoption, there is a lot of education to be made, but honestly what we have seen over the past 6 months is just incredible. So NFT was nothing 6 months ago. Now everyone is talking about NFT, and the people want to work on Web3. To the quantity of money available in venture to build this new infrastructure and this new experience is something we have never seen before.
And
I think
so many different areas as well. You know, it's not only tech, or it's not only community, or it's really about like creating experiences. So you see like the entertainment industry getting very big in this. But the question again, I might repeating myself, but I'm a brand, I'm a marketing VP marketing at a big brand. Where do I go? Where do I start if I want to get right away my foot into this universe? Where should I? You want to have like a campaign on Instagram.
I was gonna say ask your kids. I was gonna say ask your kids, right? But honestly, like as much as I agree that there is a lot of work to do, let's put things in context. Right, we're having right now a webinar using Zoom online. Go back 25 years ago, the first time you connected to the internet, right? You had a PC at home or a Mac, and you needed to buy a modem first. So you'd have to go to one of the stores and get one of these devices and put it into the machine. There was no USB at the time. So you would have to open the machine and kind of put it in there and try to make it work. Then you'd have to install the drivers, like a CD, put it into the player and just try to, or a CD or maybe a diskette at the time, and try to make it work. Then you have to plug into the telephone plug, which is like very strange. Why would you plug a computer into a telephone plug? That is also very weird. Then it would make this crazy noise, like remember, like that's what we used to have when we connected to the internet. And then you'd be on the internet, but that didn't mean anything. You would have to install Netscape Navigator or Communicator and then start browsing. Like we went from there, which was like really, really hard, to as Fred said, like almost 5 billion people online, and people working, interacting, having friends, watching movies, doing everything online in about 20 years. The NFT thing might feel hard, like, oh, I have to have a wallet. Like, what is this? If you use Venmo in the US or Lydia in France or any of these banking apps, it's actually pretty similar. It's not that different. So what we've done in 20 years, going from something that was really, really hard to something that is pretty ubiquitous, I think we're going to be able to do it in the NFT space in way less time. And specifically, if you consider, again, younger people, gamers, people that are already doing a lot of these things in centralized platforms are going to be jumping into the decentralized version of this, or are already jumping into the decentralized version of this much faster than we realize, and having impacts much bigger than we've seen with the internet so far. And every brand, every company in the world has been disrupted one way or another by the so-called digital revolution already. Okay,
thank you so much. I have to end this conversation here because I have other panels starting like right now. I'm not going to be moderating those other ones, but please join us for the next conversation, especially on Accelerator program. We have CEO of Techstars, Maël Gavet, Alex Winter, for those who know this guy from New York City. And we have Ivan Nisselson with LGB Capital, talking about the relevance of accelerator programs for entrepreneurs, and also LA, French Tech LA, talking about their ecosystem. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for answering my questions. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It's going to be available for replay very soon, and have a very good day. Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Thank you.